300-pound dudes tackling you on a frozen field, the last thing you want to do is stay out there. Believe me, the Rams players were thinking about the jacuzzi at their team hotel, that they find it laughable, but more laughable if they totally disregard the trade whatsoever. This guy has transformed the balance of power in the Eastern Conference. And you could argue the entire defense is going to be absolutely ferocious next year. But if your number one priority is to win a Super Bowl, then J.J. Watt is making a grave mistake. To ride this Chad Henne experiment for an entire game, I might need a whole bottle of Hennessy just to get through that. Guy who's won 8 division titles, who's made 5 AFC Championship appearances, who's reached the Super Bowl 3 times and has won 2 Super Bowls for this organization. Aaron Rodgers has only won 1 Super Bowl with Green Bay. Drew Brees has only won 1 Super Bowl with New Orleans. There's only 13 quarterbacks in NFL history that have won multiple Super Bowls, and Big Ben is one of those individuals. Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe right here on J&J Media Network, Facebook Live, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm Jonah Malkin with you every single Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Happy Monday. Happy Monday here in Los Angeles. I'm going to touch on both the NFC and the AFC Championship games that took place yesterday in the NFL, and even going to wrap up the 2022 Australian Open. 2 tremendous finishes, both on the men's side and on the women's side. So make sure to stay tuned for that and some of my best Malkin's moments coming up as well at the end of the show. A lot of really good stuff. But now the fact that I'm based in Los Angeles, it only makes sense that I would start today's show with the most pertinent news in Los Angeles. The Rams are advancing to Super Bowl 56. They finally beat the 49ers for the first time in 6 tries. 20-17 yesterday at SoFi. It was an electric atmosphere in the NFC Championship game. In fact, I would argue that 65 to maybe 70% of the fans were 49ers fans at the Rams home stadium. But nonetheless, the Rams are returning to the Super Bowl for the first time in 3 years, since 2019. That was Super Bowl 53, which the Patriots ultimately won with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick 13-3. But needless to say, they are back. It's the second straight year that the home team is hosting the Super Bowl. Obviously, last year, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, they played at Raymond James Stadium. Bucs ended up winning that Super Bowl over the Chiefs, and now the Rams have an opportunity to repeat history, repeat the same steps that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did just last season. And it's an extremely special day here in Los Angeles for this Rams team that, again, they haven't won a Super Bowl since Super Bowl 34, which they beat the Tennessee Titans. It's just the 5th time in franchise history that they've actually reached the Super Bowl, and really just the 3rd time that they've reached it, again, as a member of the Los Angeles Rams. Typically, they've reached the Super Bowl as a St. Louis Rams team. So that's kind of the difference here. And what's special is that this was the ultimate, not only comeback, because the Rams trailed by 10 in the 4th quarter, 17-7, but it was the ultimate triumph over a bully. And to put it candidly, that's who the 49ers had been to the Rams for the last several years, not only this season. They'd been a bully every single time they'd played them the last 6 tries. This was the first time in 6 tries that the Rams had finally been able to knock off the 49ers. The 49ers had won 6 straight games. They had been the Rams' kryptonite all season for the last several years. Sean McVay, just for whatever reason, couldn't get over the hump when it came to Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. They had always been their thorn in their side until yesterday. And what was amazing is the context and the narrative surrounding not only this game, but also the results of this game. Because to me, it was only fitting that to reach the Super Bowl, the Rams had to go through their most bitter rival, their fiercest competitor within their own division, their NFC West foe. Again, these are bitter rivals that have faced each other not only 2 times this year, but the last several years. They've always been challengers, the two of them jockeying for position. And to me, it was only fitting that the Rams lost to the 49ers in Week 18, which allowed San Francisco to advance to the postseason to clinch a playoff berth. And therefore, it was only fitting that to reach the Super Bowl, to get to where the Rams wanted to get to so desperately, they had to go through this 49ers team. And to me, it actually makes it much more fulfilling because the Rams needed to prove, I think, not only to the rest of the NFL, but more importantly to themselves, that they could actually overcome this team, because this team had their number time and time again. And yet, to reach the Super Bowl one more time, the Rams had to persevere. They had to show that resilience. They had to show that mental fortitude, that toughness to match the physicality and to punch the bully in the mouth, to punch their ticket to the Super Bowl. Because the first 3 quarters, the physicality of the game was once again favoring the 49ers. That's where they've made their bread and butter, is in mucking up the game, in the trenches. That's where the 49ers have dominated this series. And for the first 3 quarters, it was heading in that direction. The Rams defensively were unable to make tackles. Troy Reeder, 2 critical third downs, could not complete tackles. One against Debo for a first down, another one for Jennings, who was about 2 yards, maybe 2.5 to 3 yards short of the sticks, and just backpedaled after being wrapped up by Reeder, managed to backpedal for the first down. Those seemed like backbreakers for a Rams defense that was just kind of struggling again to match the physicality, to stop the run game. The 49ers were doing a great job neutralizing the Rams' pass rush all through the first 3 quarters. You had, even offensively, the Rams weren't sputtering offensively, but they were just making some mental errors, some mental mistakes. Obviously, Matthew Stafford threw that pick early, but then Cooper Kupp had kind of a surprising drop that would have been a touchdown pass. Just went right through his hands on a slant. Ben Skoranek dropped a touchdown pass right in his fingertips. So we were starting to see these errors multiply as the game was going on, not only on the offensive side, but also the defensive side of the ball. And then you had Debo Samuel, who was carving them up like he always does, leading rusher, even though they didn't rush for that many yards, only 50 yards, but Debo still got the ball, 7 carries, 26 yards. They kind of bottled him up, at least on the ground game, but he had 4 receptions for 72 yards. Took a little screen pass from 40 yards out to the end zone, which is something that he's prone to do pretty much every single game that he plays this year. He's been unbelievable. The ultimate workhorse, the ultimate competitor. But from that late third quarter on, the Rams managed to find a new level, dig deeper, unlock some aggression, some passion that they hadn't been able to conjure up in previous games against the 49ers. And they outscored them 13-0 in the fourth quarter, something that we had rarely seen. In fact, Sean McVay had been 0-14 prior to yesterday's game when trailing by 10 points or more in the fourth quarter. This was the first time he was able to overcome that type of deficit. And the difference is the Rams, not only the quarterback play, but defensively were the 2 biggest keys of the game, because Matthew Stafford, with the exception of the 1 early pick and that 1 terrible throw towards the end of the game that should have been caught by Tart, the exception of that, he was making tremendous throws. Again, 2 touchdown passes that were dropped. And this was a big spot for Matthew Stafford because, again, this almost felt like a road game for the Rams playing at home. The Niners had infiltrated that stadium. They were a lot more prominent. They were a lot louder for the majority of the game. So this wasn't like playing in the comfort of your own home. And Matthew Stafford, again, managed to block all that out, block some of the drop touchdown passes by Kupp and by Skoranek, stay locked in. And the connection, again, that he was able to fortify with Cooper Kupp this year, just tremendous. He put one in shoebox to Cooper Kupp for a touchdown. The first touchdown pass of the game through two defenders in the back of the end zone in the corner. Found Cooper Kupp again open in the corner. I mean, Kupp had 11 catches, 142 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's just so deft and has such a knack for getting open. It still amazes me how he's able to get open time and time again. I'm almost surprised every single time I see it. But he's just a fantastic route runner. He's got tremendous hands, and the connection, the wavelength that he has with Matthew Stafford, that the two of them have been able to build throughout this entire year is second to none. Odell Beckham Jr. was fantastic. I would argue it was perhaps his most impactful game as an LA Ram. 9 catches, 113 yards. And then Kendall Blanton, the backup tight end, kind of all hope looked lost at the tight end position when Higbee went down. And Blanton steps in, 5 catches, 57 yards. Pretty much every single reception was for a first down. The guy played the best game of his career. He was composed under pressure. He made catches through traffic. He ran after the catch. He played extremely well. He played a hell of a game. And so the quarterback play, and again, the defense were the two most critical parts of the game, because the run game for both sides was neutralized. So you highlighted the Rams offense with Matthew Stafford specifically, and that Rams defense paid big dividends down the stretch. They didn't necessarily record any sacks, but they applied a lot of pressure on Jimmy G in that fourth quarter. They forced him to hurry up some throws. They nearly had a pick. Then obviously the final offensive snap for the 49ers, Aaron Donald, Von Miller, they got the pressure to him. Jimmy G was scrambling as he was being taken down, just tried to chuck it, side pass it, tips over the fingertips of a 49er, and it's scooped up by the Rams, and they end up winning this game. And again, the challenge playing the 49ers, and we knew this was going to be the challenge for the Rams, was because of that strong run game, the Rams defense had to clog the middle. You got to put guys in the box. But as a consequence, it neutralizes your pass rush on the outside, because now Jimmy G's got more time to sit in that pocket and to deliver throws. And he was doing that early on in the game. But they managed to break through. They managed to persevere, and it showed that resilience. And this was just a tremendous, tremendous game, a tremendous story for the Rams, who I think now that they have reached the Super Bowl, it validates the trade for Matthew Stafford. Obviously, the Rams have bigger expectations than that. They hope that they can win the whole thing. And they're one game away from doing that and already open as a favorite against the Bengals. But I think regardless of the outcome, it validates the reasons why you traded for Matthew Stafford, who was arguably the best quarterback in fourth quarters this year in the NFL. 13 touchdowns, no picks in the fourth quarter this year. And so, to me, I can't wait for the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. Again, the fact that the home team gets to host is unbelievable. I would imagine the Rams fans would come out in greater droves this time around than they did for the NFC Championship game. But just a tremendous, tremendous, not only experience, but moment for this Rams group that had gone out on a limb. They had taken a bunch of chances. They had been bold. They had showed that they are willing to take risks. Stan Kroenke invested a lot of money, not only in the stadium, but in this team and in the belief of Sean McVay, in the belief in Les Snead, and the coaching staff and these players. And they've managed, to the credit of Sean McVay, he's managed to kind of have all these players coalesce and have this amalgamation work right now. OBJ, Von Miller, Matthew Stafford, 3 high-profile midseason and offseason acquisitions, and they've all paid huge dividends, and the Rams are going to the Super Bowl. And it's extremely special. And the team that they're going to be facing might have surprised a bunch of folks. It certainly surprised me to some degree. Cincinnati Bengals advancing to their 3rd Super Bowl appearance ever, the first time since 1989. Funny enough, they ended up losing to the 49ers that season in 1989. But listen, there's plenty of time to lament some of the mistakes by the Chiefs, to still talk about the Chiefs' greatness and who they will continue to be for years to come. But today is not really that day. Today is about praising and complimenting a Cincinnati Bengals team that has had one of the most endearing, not only moments in their franchise history, but one of the most heartwarming stories of this NFL season, because it's been an unbelievable year to have the kind of turnaround that the Cincinnati Bengals have had. I don't think people have quite comprehended the magnitude of what they've accomplished. This was the worst franchise in the NFL just 2 seasons ago. Literally the worst winning percentage. The future was shot. Dalton was gone. There didn't seem to be much direction with that franchise. The losses are just piling up. They're piling up. And all around you, you're seeing these teams start to ascend. The Ravens with Lamar Jackson were starting to get better. Obviously, the Chiefs were starting to emerge. Brady was still with the Pats. There wasn't much future. You still had Big Ben in the AFC North. Baker Mayfield was there. He was starting to play well for the Browns. So the outlook looked dire for the Bengals. And then 2 years ago, they draft Joe Burrow. They draft Joe Burrow, number 1 overall. And they start to show some glimpses of potential in his first year. They weren't winning many games, but he was playing pretty well. Then he tears his ACL, and 13 months later, they defy the odds. They win the AFC North. They win the AFC. They reach the playoffs. They knock off the top seed in the Tennessee Titans on the road. That was their first road playoff win in franchise history. They knock off the 3-time back-to-back-to-back reigning AFC champions in the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday, 27-24 in overtime. And they're reaching the Super Bowl for the first time since 1989. All because of this one young man in Joe Burrow. Obviously, I'll talk about Jamar Chase, who has also been a godsend for them. He has changed life and what they've been able to do, along with a bunch of others. But for right now, the lasting image that I think has kind of left an indelible mark on all of us is the smoking cigar celebration, because that just seems to be sell right now when it comes to Joe Burrow. You want to call him January Joe, Joe Ice. He's been developing all kinds of new monikers over the last 24 hours, and it's all justified because he celebrates with a certain style. And now it's funny to me how we associate Joe Burrow with smoking the cigar, even if it's not a national championship like he did at LSU, whether or not it's a postseason win or an NFL win, whether or not they've won the Super Bowl. He is smoking the cigar, the victory cigar. But the reason why it's so important to me is because, again, that little moment right there sheds light into the new attitude that he has injected into this Cincinnati Bengals team. I'm going to touch on his performance and what it's meant, because I've I've talked about this repeatedly when it comes to Joe Burrow, the moxie, the leadership, the demeanor, the confidence that he plays with. He has a certain bravado that I think just permeates that locker room, and he infuses this new type of confidence in this group that's contagious. And it's trickled down to every single player on this team, whether it's special teams or Evan McPherson, who again delivered a game-winning field goal for the Bengals. He's done it all postseason. He's done it all year. Just a rookie, a fantastic rookie. And again, they've just continued to defy the odds. But when I think about this game against the Chiefs, they had to overcome an 18-point deficit. It was 21-3 at one point. 21-3. And the turning point in the game was the end of the first half. The Chiefs' offense couldn't be stopped. It was 21-10. At that point, they had second and goal at the Cincinnati 1 with about 10 seconds left, and they couldn't punch it in. In fact, they couldn't even get any points because Mahomes mistakenly threw it to Tyreek Hill behind the goal line, and he was tackled short. They had no more timeouts. And from that moment on, the script was flipped. And it was the first time, I think, in my career watching Patrick Mahomes in the first time where I think nerves started to get to him a little bit, where he started to crack under the pressure, which is rare given what we had just seen him accomplish last week, where it was reported that his heart rate didn't even go up for that final drive with 13 seconds left against the Bills to tie the game and send it to overtime. So it's not that Patrick Mahomes was nervous, but I do feel like something kind of happened internally with him where he mentally shut down after that play. He was unable to kind of find his groove because 5 of the 6 offensive possessions for the Chiefs in the second half after that play, the first 5 were 4 punts and 1 interception. They only scored points on their final drive of the game to tie it again. Butker with a field goal to send it to OT. And it just seemed like Mahomes, who had thrown a nearly perfect first half. The guy was truly flawless up until those final couple seconds. He was playing perfectly. For whatever reason, just kind of lost his command over his throws. He was missing mundane checkdowns and flips to his running backs. He was overshooting some of his receivers. And it's just, again, so surprising and unusual for a guy that has maintained such high levels of consistency and play throughout the course of his career, especially in the postseason. He's always been so sharp in the postseason. And then when the game did go into overtime and you're watching the coin flip and the Chiefs won the coin flip, I think everyone, including myself, was thinking, well, here we go again. They're about to advance to the Super Bowl. Even the Chiefs social media accounts posted in all caps, "We won the toss, the coin toss." It seemed inevitable, but to the credit of the Bengals defense, they put their feet in the ground and they said, no, we're going to step up to the challenge. We're going to overcome this. We're going to make some plays. And boy, did they do that. They picked them off. But even in the entire second half, the Bengals defensively clamped down. They did a much better job bottling him up. They were able to sack him 4 times, 3 times in the first half, once in overtime. And they just made him feel a little bit uncomfortable. And I think what's interesting is the 2 halves. It was such an antithesis for this Bengals team because that second half, again, Burrow just was able to lock in a little bit more. He was finding T. Higgins all day, over 100 yards. The Chiefs did a nice job containing Jamar Chase for the most part. But again, when the rubber needed to meet the road, when they got into the red zone, and Burrow just put it up for Chase one-on-one in the end zone. He made a play. He made a play. And again, those two guys have just changed life, have changed the outcome and the direction of this franchise. Joe Mixon was running the ball effectively, especially when he needed to. He had 21 carries, 88 yards, but some big-time runs in the second half and in overtime to set up the McPherson field goal. But I think perhaps the most monumental Bengals play came with Joe Burrow's legs, picking up those huge third downs, those critical downs with his legs, able to escape sacks and just show that athleticism. He started to showcase that athleticism at LSU with his ability to run with the football, but we really started to see that come to the forefront yesterday. Joe Burrow just continued to stay calm, stay poised, and again, I love his competitive spirit, because the belief that he shows not only in his team, but out on the field, that he's unfazed. Again, the guy was sacked 9 times against the Tennessee Titans, didn't startle him whatsoever, stayed in that pocket, and the same thing we saw yesterday. He was brought down a couple times, able to escape a couple times, but the bottom line is he's got such a short memory, and he's so confident in himself and in his teammates. That competitive drive, that will to win, you see that rub off on his teammates. And typically that's something we say about the Kansas City Chiefs. Normally an opponent isn't able to match that. And no one is trying to argue or say that Burrow is as good as Mahomes. That's not the case. I don't believe it, nor will anyone try to make that argument. But it's also safe to say and fair to say that Joe Burrow has demonstrated a tremendous amount of clutchness in this postseason. And this is just his second season. This is the first time in NFL history that a quarterback in their first 2 seasons led a team to a Super Bowl. And Joe Burrow can claim that honor. He can claim that honor. And again, when it comes to competitors and competitiveness, he's unapologetic. He should be unapologetic. It's an incredible transformation for this program, for this franchise. Again, the bravado that he plays with, just an impressive win. And this wasn't a fluke, because the same thing happened over the Chiefs in Week 17. They beat him 34-31. They had to come back from 14 down. So it was the second consecutive time when these two teams have faced off that the Bengals were able to overcome a huge halftime deficit. So congrats to the Cincinnati Bengals. A well-earned trip to the Super Bowl. And again, even though they're underdogs, that's exactly the type of position that they'd like to be in. That's exactly how they like to be viewed. So I can't wait for that one. It'll be a tremendous, tremendous Super Bowl. But I want to transition to the Australian Open, because obviously people that follow me, people that watch my show, know how much of an avid tennis consumer I am. I'm a huge tennis fan. I've been playing since the age of 4. I just went to the U.S. Open this past summer in New York, and the Australian Open took place, and it just wrapped up yesterday, at least Pacific time. On the men's side, history was broken yesterday. Rafael Nadal captured his 21st Grand Slam, a record-setting number for the most singles Grand Slams ever. He's now the most decorated men's tennis player of all time. One more Grand Slam over Roger Federer and Novak Djokovic. It was his second Australian Open that he's won. First time he won was in 2009, and now 13 years later, he wins in 2022, defeated the number 2 seed, really the top seed though, in Daniil Medvedev, because Novak Djokovic was disqualified from participating. So, and he came back against Medvedev down 2-0. Came back to win. He lost the first 2 sets, 2-6, 6-7. Then he won 6-4, 6-4, and 7-5. It was a match that lasted 5 hours and 24 minutes. That's just a typical Rafael Nadal grind you out game, tennis match that's going to last for eternity. And he actually had an opportunity to serve for the match at 5-4 in the fifth set and was broken. And I think it's really interesting when you look at competitors, because Daniil Medvedev has kind of been the next closest challenger to the Djokovic's, to the Nadals, to the Federers of the world. He's been the one guy out of that second tier underneath the big three that is constantly in the mix in the finals. He obviously just won his first Grand Slam. He won the U.S. Open in 2021 in straight sets over Djokovic. So this was once again another big spot for him. But you had the feeling that this time around things were different, because he had that Grand Slam championship swagger to him this time, and it came through the first two sets. It came through the first two sets. But the interesting thing, though, is Australia's kind of been a house of horrors for him, because he lost to Djokovic in the finals in 2021. And the irony is the last time Nadal and Medvedev played in a Grand Slam final was in 2019 at the U.S. Open. And in fact, if I remember correctly, the tables were almost kind of turned. Nadal won the first two sets. Medvedev came back in the third and the fourth set, and then Nadal pulled it out in the fifth. But the bottom line is those two have gone the distance before. Those two have gone the distance before. And once again, it was an epic, epic final, classic matchup. And Nadal, with that victory, became just the fourth man ever to capture multiple Grand Slams at every single Grand Slam. He's won at least two everywhere. The only three guys to have accomplished that: Rod Laver, of course, Roy Emerson, and Novak Djokovic. Because with that, he now has 2 Australian Opens, 13 French Opens, 4 U.S. Opens, and 2 Wimbledon Opens. Not to mention he has 4 times been the runner-up at the Australian Open. He has suffered a lot of heartbreaking losses. In 2012, lost a tough 5-setter to Djokovic. 2017, lost a tough setter to Roger Federer. And when you think about the journey, that's what tennis is, that's what makes tennis so special, is the fact that it's such an individualized sport that mentally you can't be fragile at any point. And what this man has had to endure over the last year, the fact that this guy hasn't played a tournament in half a year. He played in one tune-up 2 weeks prior to the start of the Australian Open. That was his first actual tournament action in 6 months due to a foot injury that he sustained at the French Open in 2020, but he aggravated it in 2021, but he aggravated it so much in that tournament, it forced him to be sidelined for about 6 months to heal up mentally and physically. So he hadn't competed in a live tournament in such a long time, and yet he comes back with a vengeance, looking just as sharp, and he wins his first major since the 2020 French Open. It's been 2 years. He won the U.S. Open in 2019. Those are his most recent Grand Slams for Rafael Nadal. And I think this is what makes Rafael Nadal so special, because every single member of the Big Three and every great tennis player, there are unique traits to all of them. And the trait that stands out to me when you watch Rafael Nadal play, and I've been seeing him play, I've been watching him play ever since I was alive. I was born in 1997. That's when Federer was starting to emerge. Rafael Nadal, by the time I was 8 years old, was bursting onto the scene. I've been watching Rafael Nadal play his entire career since he hopped onto the Pro Tour at 17. And the trait that always stands out to me when I'm watching Rafael Nadal is the physicality that he plays with. How hard he hits the ball. His power ground game is outstanding. Is absolutely outstanding. He rockets and clocks and pounds every single ball he hits, whether he's warming up, and I've watched him warm up, or he's playing in a tournament. He approaches every single ball like he is trying to crank it as hard as he possibly can. And it's so impressive because the style of tennis that he plays is so grueling, it's so taxing on his body, and that's what unfortunately has forced him to miss some time recently, is because of that physicality and that wear and tear on your body. The fact that he hits so hard from the baseline, the fact that he whips and contorts his body so much to generate all that topspin. I mean, the guy generates probably the most topspin I've ever seen on forehand and backhand shots, especially on the forehand side. The way that his arm whips around over his head, that's all topspin that he's getting on those forehand shots. But the thing that impresses me is the fact that not only is this guy ripped, the guy's got huge biceps, huge calves. He is super muscular, just a strong built tennis player, which we don't see too many of those. You look at Djokovic, you look at Medvedev, even Roger Federer to a certain degree, they look a lot slimmer. Rafael Nadal is wearing tank tops, athletic tank tops when he plays typically, and the guy is absolutely ripped. But you combine that with the fact that he's one of the best defensive tennis players that we've ever seen. An incredible athlete, great anticipation skills, and again, the fact that he's been able to sustain this physical level of tennis for such a long time speaks to his incredible professionalism, his incredible preparation, and the way that he trains and gets his body fueled up and ready to go is a great testament to how incredible of a tennis player he really is. And I think that the way that he is able to play with his emotions, I love how emotional he is, and to see that radiant smile beaming after victory, to see his celebration, to see how overjoyed, and to see the emotions pouring out from him when he won this Grand Slam. It's touching because of the journey that he's been on and the fact that he had to come back, the fashion that he won this Grand Slam in. It's extremely memorable. And again, he's also been battering old. And I just think that his competitive will, his competitive spirit, you can't underestimate the competitive will and spirit of a champion, a former champion. And this guy, he's played with his back against the wall before. It's been a long journey for him and a well-earned victory, and a huge congratulations to him on a monumental moment to break history. And now he holds the record for the most Grand Slams. And this is why, if you're Novak Djokovic, you're kicking yourself right now, just writhing in pain in your bed and ruining and lamenting the fact that you didn't get a chance to participate in this tournament, and you might have cost yourself a Grand Slam because of your pride and your ego. Again, I'm not pushing an agenda, but the reality is he could not play because of his refusal to get vaccinated. And it might have just cost him a Grand Slam, and now one of his competitors and one of his contemporaries and greatest rivals just surpassed him again and set the mark. All because of his personal pride and refusal to get vaccinated. I'm not saying he would have won if he played, but he sure as hell would have had a better chance of winning had he participated than not participating at all. But regardless, big shout out and congratulations to Rafael Nadal on an incredible tournament. Great start to 2022 for him. And to claim that 21st Grand Slam, it's nothing short of spectacular. Nothing short of spectacular. And I want to transition to the women's side as well. A tremendous Australian Open's women's final. Ash Barty defeated the American in the 27th seed Danielle Collins in the final in straight sets. In fact, the second set, she had to come back from 5-1 down. She was trailing. She was trailing 5-1 in the second set, and yet managed to send it into a 6-6 tiebreak. She took 7 of the 9 points in the tiebreak. And the hometown hero, the hometown star, the number 1 ranking in the world, Ash Barty, collected her 3rd Grand Slam, her first Australian Open. She won Wimbledon Open at 2021. She also won the French Open in 25 years. But this is what's impressive to me about Ash Barty. So she's got 3 Grand Slams, but she is 3-0 in the Grand Slam finals. In those finals at just the age of 25, so still very young. And I think that it's perfectly reflective, her unblemished record in the finals. It's perfectly reflective of the type of personality, the type of person that she is. Someone who plays with tremendous poise. She's always calm, always collected, never fazed by the moment, very stoic, extremely professional, always extremely classy. And you can't glean much from her emotions because during the course of the game, she doesn't emote that much. She's not giving away anything. The only time she actually let loose a big scream was on the championship point. Outside of that, she is typically even keel. And what sets Ash Barty apart to me, and what's extremely impressive, not only that she ended a 44-year drought of becoming the first Australian to win the Australian Open since 1978. So you add how special this is for her to win in her home country of Australia. The fact that that's so rare, that's first speaks to how impressive this victory was. But the other piece of it, it's the culmination of what's been just an extremely dominant tournament. The entire tournament, she didn't concede a set. She's won 14 straight sets without dropping a set. She only dropped 4 games in a set on 2 occasions. Collins obviously was one of those. But to me, when you watch Ash Barty play, she's such a savvy, such a clever player because she has such an unorthodox style. Her forehand's powerful. She can move the ball all around the court, but it's her backhand, the slice on the backhand, and the great command and the great control that she has on that slice. That's the difference. Her ability to manipulate points using that backhand slice, changing the speeds, changing the spins, changing the height of the ball, wanting to play it defensively on the backhand side, go with the offensive slice. The variety of ways that she utilizes that backhand, not to mention she has the capabilities of hitting a 2-hand backhand down the line or going cross court when she needs to, but her control and the placement of her backhand slice is absolutely sensational. And quite frankly, I don't know if we've ever seen someone that has as good and as powerful of a backhand slice as Ash Barty. And she was going up against a fierce competitor. Danielle Collins is a power player, attacking every single ball. I don't think Danielle Collins let any balls get up on her. She's taking everything on the rise. That backhand was shining through, just extremely powerful. Again, cranking every single ball, trying to pound every single ball she could get her hands on. And it worked for a while in that second set until Ash Barty managed to answer and solve the riddle, get herself in position, controlled it back. And this was a fierce competition, a fierce championship match to play. Collins is a really tough competitor, and it was a really impressive win. And I just like Ash Barty. I think that she represents herself well. She's a very classy player. She's not into the gesticulations and histrionics and the entertainment aspect necessarily. She's about being professional, doing her job, doing it well, get in, get out, and that's it. That's it. just always composed on the tennis court. And I think we're starting to see more and more players lose their cool. And it's very respectable, the way that she carries herself. It's extremely impressive. And again, her ability to just stay locked in and not lose focus was tremendous. And she's number one in the world for a reason. She's number one in the world for a reason, and had a tremendous tournament. Congratulations to her, especially the fact that she got to win it in home country of Australia. That's such a rare and beautiful moment to experience. So congratulations to Ash Barty. And finally, my Malkins moments. I have some great Malkins moments. So I want to start off right away with Ash Barty, who won the 2022 Australian Open and was her third Grand Slam. As I mentioned, it ended a 44-year drought of becoming the first Australian woman to win the Open singles title since 1978. But she joined exclusive company, joining Serena Williams as the only active player to have won at least 3 different majors in the season-ending WTA finals. In fact, she's in a group of 5, including Serena and the big 3 of the men's side, Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal, as the only active players to have won a title on all 3 on 3 surfaces. And her 30 games that she conceded, that's all she conceded, was 30 games en route to winning the Australian Open, is the fewest since Steffi Graf did it 33 years ago. So major shout out to Ash Barty, fantastic. And her 2 companions from Australia, Nick Kyrgios and Thanasi Kokkinakis, won the Australian Open men's doubles title. They won 7-5, 6-4 over Matt Ebden and Max Purcell on Saturday. And what's impressive, these 2 individuals, obviously both natives of Australia, they've been longtime friends. They became the first home ground pairing to win the men's double title in Australia since Todd Woodbridge and Mark Woodford, aka the Woodies, did it in 1997. That was the year that I was born. This was only their 4th Grand Slam event as a team. So they haven't played in that many professional tournaments together, although I will say they won the Wimbledon boys doubles title about 9 years ago. People forget Nick Kyrgios is only like 26 years old, so he's still a young guy. And they conceded only 2 sets in 6 matches. That included wins over the number 1 and number 3 seeds as well. And it was the first all-Australian men's double final at the Australian Open since 1980. That was when Mark Edmondson and Kim Warwick beat Peter McNamara and Paul McNamee to win that doubles title in 1980. So it's been a long time, 42 years. Transitioning to the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals won the AFC Championship and advanced to the Super Bowl for the first time since the 1988-1989 season. They beat the Chiefs 27-24 in overtime at Arrowhead. Joe Burrow was fantastic. He became the Bengals quarterback became the first ever number 1 pick to start in a Super Bowl in his first 2 seasons at the helm. And Cincinnati's comeback, listen, they trailed 21-3. So this was an 18-point comeback, is tied for the largest ever of a comeback in a title game during the Super Bowl era. The 2006 Indianapolis Colts rallied from 18 points down to win the AFC title game against the New England Patriots and Tom Brady. And per Elias Sports Bureau research, the Bengals are the 3rd team, just the 3rd team to go from worst to first in a 3-season span. The 1981 49ers were one of those squads. They ended up going on to beat the Bengals in one of those Super Bowls. I believe it was Super Bowl 36, if I am not mistaken. And finally, last 2, Rafael Nadal won his record-setting 21st Grand Slam, his 2nd Australian Open. Just a tremendous career. And for Nadal, this is just the 4th time in his career and the first time since 2007 that he has rallied from a 2 sets down situation to win a best-of-5 match. It's the first time it's happened at the Australian Open final since 1965. Since 1965, I believe that's when Rod Laver did that in 1965. And finally, last one, the Rams, they reached the Super Bowl after finally beating the San Francisco 49ers 20-17. It's the 5th time in franchise history that they've won, and it's the first time in the Sean McVay era that the Rams have been able to come back from a 10-point plus lead entering the 4th quarter to win the game. They were 0-14 prior to that under Sean McVay. That included 0-4 this season. And Stafford now becomes just the 7th quarterback to start a Super Bowl in his first season with the team. He'll join Brady, who did it in 2020 with the Bucs, and not the 7th, the 3rd quarterback, and Trent Dilfer in 2000 with the Baltimore Ravens as the only other 3 to accomplish just that. That's all the time that I got for you today. Thank you so much for joining me right here on Morning Joe every single Monday and Wednesday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 to 11 Central, and 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube page, Morning Joe, J-O, with Jonah Malkin on YouTube. Jonah Malkin or at morning_Joe_ on Twitter, JMalk97 on Instagram, and Jonah Malkin on TikTok. Thank you so much. And as always, have a lovely rest of your morning.